ridership is down. Usage of public transportation is down. And it's not just because 90% of the world seems to be under a shelter-in-place order. What the situation is that a lot of the people that have to do the work, they're not getting sanitized. They're not getting the equipment they need. They don't have the gloves. They don't have the masks. And then ridership is down because they're scared. And who can blame them? Now, dealing with the situation right now, we know what we need to do. We know that cleaners have to be brought in. They have to make sure that trains and buses are sanitized regularly, far more often than they usually are. And the people driving the buses should be given PPE, proper protective equipment. And it should not have to be in the news that, hey, we don't have any, we don't get any. We have to get out here and risk our lives for 30, 40K to drive a much more reduced ridership no matter what, because we're essential. My concern is that going forward, this is a weak spot for sustainable transport, especially in municipalities. How do we fix this? And I don't see anybody asking those questions to say, how do we create a safe environment for transit workers, particular drivers who have to deal with the public? And how do we reassure the public that this isn't a one-time thing? We're not going to fail to take sanitization and their health seriously as transit riders. And I will say that San Francisco has completely shut down the Muni train, which if you are from San Francisco or you're from the Bay Area, you know that that's traveling throughout a large portion of the San Francisco peninsula itself. So BART's still running, but it's just buses right now for Muni.
Wow.
I mean, before I got my shelter-in-place order, my employer was pushing me to go to an appointment that would have made it so I would have had to ride the metro. And this stuff was like just starting to hit our area at the time. And I'm like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And thankfully, management came in at the last second and said, oh, you don't have to go. You can go after we lift the order. And I was like, oh, okay, good. But you bring up a point. What about the person who's driving this thing? What about everybody else who doesn't, the people have to clean it, the people have to service it. They are exposed to this. And
yeah,
right.
Ridiculous.
I just looked up Metra in the Chicagoland area is doing alternate schedules. And on some of the lines, they're running every other, so if it was every hour, it's now running every other hour. And, basically, it makes sense on their behalf because they would rather not run empty trains or, have full trains. But, when you think of the full life cycle of mass transportation, not only is it the engineer, it's the conductors, it's the people walking around collecting the fares. Now, you have to look at the whole life cycle. And let's say that I get on the train and I have an $8 fare to go downtown and I give the conductor a $10 bill. Now, he's wearing gloves, great for him. So he takes my $10 bill and he gives me 2 singles or a $2 bill because I think $2 bills are cool. Now, here's what's interesting. He's wearing gloves. He's protected. He takes my $10 bill and uses it as change to someone who gives him a 20. Mm-hmm. So even though in a tunic, even though he's wearing gloves and he's protected, he's taken my possibly contaminated $10 bill and he's handed it to someone else. He just cross-contaminated.
Or loony.
Or
yeah. So a couple things. There's been this assumption that transportation in the future is going to be shared mobility. And we already have an example of shared mobility in public transportation. And now that this is happening, people are concerned about cross-contamination. Today, right now, if they just made all public transportation free, so you didn't have to do those exchanges, and ran them as they were scheduled, even knowing ridership would be down, that would guarantee that you had room on there to spread out, instead of saying, oh, well, no, we'd have better utilization if we did every other hour. But then you don't want high utilization. You don't want people packed in there.
Right.
And most of these public transportation companies get some government funding anyway. So it's not like they depend on their only source of income is not the fares that they get. And as Georgia mentioned, there are people right now who are essential. They're working in grocery stores, they're working in restaurants that are doing takeout and other things. They have to get there. They have to do their jobs, so you can't just shut down public transportation. So I think we should go the other way and run public transportation and make it free, at least during this crisis.
Yeah. I just spoke to a supermarket refrigeration repairman, and he's critical. He cannot take off. I mean, if the food stops, then we're done. But I watched a video of a guy in the New York subway. Before he jumped the turnstile, he squirted it down, cleaned it, and then he jumped the turnstile.
Oh my God.
Love that.
Oh my God.
Let's
You brought up New York City, and that made me remember things like if you take BART, you don't actually have to hand anybody any money. If you go to LA, you don't got to do that at all either. Get your card and you slide it on through. But that still leaves you with the issue of the fact that you're sitting in a car with multiple people. And then it depends on you and the people around you to pay attention to social distancing. And you know what people don't have? Common sense.
Yes.
Right.
So
understatement of the show.
Look
I
at
think that's
all
the
of the
decade.
look at all the Uber drivers and passengers who've contracted this stuff.
Have there been a lot?
There were no loonies involved. There's
My
no cash.
tunie's better than yours.
There were
so-
some loons.
So, like you've got this shared vehicle, and do you know the sanitation of it? I mean, the stuff lives on surfaces for at least a little while, even porous surfaces. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we always say with the autonomous car, do I want the car that's been driving, especially Russell, do you want the car that's been driving around by itself with who knows who doing what in the backseat, and then you get in it, and
Right.
and now
Talk about living in a petri dish. Like
Now, yeah.
you don't know what it is.
And I will say that Georgia was talking about on some mass transit you don't have to hand anybody anything. I've been toying with going with the Metro phone app for a while. This might be the tipping point. And I generally don't like putting my credit card to things, especially attached to a phone. And I'm just not that person. I'm not the person that jumps into something like that willy-nilly. But now that we have something that is so contagious and can be just passed around, yeah, this might be, and maybe our new norm in the United States is going to be more like other countries where the phone is used as a wallet and a form of payment, so that you don't have to worry about handling other people's stuff.
and your phone
Right,
doesn't
our light rail
touch the
system
other
here-
stuff. It gets near. It gets near, and then there's no contact. Go ahead.
Exactly.
Right. That's exactly, yeah. Our light rail system here, they have these hop passes. You just hold your phone near it, and if you have Google Pay or Apple Pay, it just works.
Well,
Yeah,
or
God,
if you have a
blah,
mute
blah,
pass,
Portrait is utopia, blah, blah, blah.
You've been here, and
Oh,
you admitted it on this show.
the same thing applies in San Francisco. Yeah, if you buy a Muni pass, you show the pass, you get on the bus. There's no touching, there's no contact thing. But that's the downside to mass transit is you're with other humans, good and bad, right? If they're infectious, you're infectious too. Yay!
What are we looking
That's-
at? What are we looking at? Pods?
Yeah,
No,
wear
we're
gloves.
talking about the Uber. We're talking about bicycles and walking everywhere, like the Giver.
Yeah.
Still haven't read that one.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I miss public transit in San Francisco. I mean, I rode Muni for years, on and off, and BART and all of that, and I miss that. I miss not having the albatross of my private vehicle around my neck all the time. And if I wanted to go somewhere, I rented a car. Now,
Yeah.
does that work for everyone? No.
So
In every place, no.
we got to build cities that are built back around walking and bicycling. I mean, because we can't. In so many of the cities that we've constructed now, they're car dependent. Like some of the real estate apps I've been looking at, there's a walk score, and like almost everything you look at is a 0 or a 5.
Yeah, this might change urban design. city planning, suburb planning significantly. This is interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, I discussed this with a city planner, wow, nearly 8 years ago, where I said that the transportation costs for food is going to mean that they're going to have to start reserving land for agricultural purposes to make sure that they have a sustainable local version of a farm that's civically run so that it can get to us and as fuel becomes more and more expensive. And I think we're looking at the exact same situation where it comes to infectious disease and public transportation. I'm spoiled by Manhattan and New York City. I love New York City public transit, but we need to do something so we can use these sustainable methods. And I guess that's where I'll leave it.